All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's May 25th, 2022. It's May 25th, 2022. My name's Eric Osterman, and I just swallowed a fly. I don't know what the heck. It's not clearing my throat. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format's very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by heading over to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a recording of our call to our YouTube channel. So if you want to support our channel and support what we do here at Cloud Posse, please head over to youtube.com/cloudposse and subscribe. It helps us out a great deal. So with that said, let's jump into some announcements from the past week here. So the first one was brought to my attention is if you have been adopting the AWS Network Manager, they've added now support for managing Transit Gateway. So you can now,
Really nice.
Have you already checked it out?
Yeah, we're actually using it because we've got 3 regions cross-routed between right now from the West 2 to East 2 and East
1. And you're managing it with the Network Manager, so it's facilitating that configuration?
We're not really, I mean, we've got it configured to be able to visualize it, but we're using the Terraform to actually deploy the transit gateways.
Yeah, using the original Terraform resources for the transit gateway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know if this is going to, does this extend the APIs of the Network Manager so that it can facilitate creation of the transit gateway, or are we still going to be stuck with terraforming it with the raw resources?
Yeah, I haven't looked that deeply into it yet, but I'd also seen this updated notice come out and was looking at it as well as while I was working on all my transit gateway stuff.
But as you point out, it definitely has a nice ability to visualize your network topology across accounts within your organization. So,
as well as metrics too, because that was another thing that we found was that we were getting asymmetric routing issues and not where there were no routes through, and it was trying to pass through the transit gateway. And when we used the Network Manager, we were able to identify that and then see when we actually had that fixed because we saw there was no route packet drop.
All right. Well, that sounds like a win there. Let's see my next announcement here. A small one here is that you can now rerun jobs in GitHub Actions up to 30 days later, I believe, and you can enable the debug flag as part of that run. And I'm linking to the wrong announcement part here. This is what I wanted to link to. So you can check off the box here and rerun the job with debug enabled, and then retrieve those logs using the GitHub Action CLI, for example. More than that, I don't know what it brings that we didn't have before. I'm guessing it's more low-level diagnostic logs from the agent itself, as opposed to more debugging logs within your task itself. Somebody was going to ask me?
From my experience, that would be tremendously handy, because the way that I've had to do it so far when trying to debug it is go in, add the debug environment variables, and then rerun the jobs. If we can just do it this way, I won't even have to do that anymore.
Yeah, so this is beneficial because you don't have to modify the state of the job, and you can just rerun it exactly as it was with the debug flags enabled, and it preserves
exactly. That's a killer win.
Yeah, so it preserves the SHA and everything that it was originally run with.
It'd be nice if they add what some other platforms like Circle and others have, is the ability to SSH in.
Oh my God, that would be so nice.
Yeah.
That would be so nice for debugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard with GitHub Actions.
Yeah.
I mean, even to go further with the debugging and to do just that, I actually launched the GitHub's action runner on my Raspberry Pi in my house and just changed the job to run locally on my action.
This is interesting. So I've had to debug things in ECS before they added Session Manager Connect. Yep. And now, so then I use Teammate, and it looks like somebody else has tried this too. So this is be interesting. So you can make a Teammate session the first step of your job, and then connect to it. That's really an interesting idea. I wonder how well it works in practice. I'll share this in the channel. We're in it. There we go. Next announcement is something we shared via our newsletter, which was some nice diagrams for persons new to Terraform or persons trying to explain Terraform to newcomers on your team. It seems so obvious to anyone who's been working with Terraform for 7 years how it works. But yeah, when you're new to it, you don't understand like what's the relationship between modules and providers. I really didn't understand that in the beginning. I remember you can see it's still evidenced by all the issues opened up on the Terraform core, complaining about bugs in the AWS provider, not understanding that those are totally separate things. That's one example. The life cycle, of a change and so forth. So that was nice. Also, this is a nice little query you can run to just see what are the most upvoted issues on any repo. In this case, Terraform. So what are the most popular Terraform core issues that are being upvoted here? Or like we can look at Terraform provider AWS and see what are the most upvoted issues on the Terraform provider. I guess support for the AWS chatbot looks pretty popular. I'm surprised because this has only 7 comments. Why is
not being talked about?
6 not being talked about, but that's a lot of upvotes, 615.
It's also people commenting +1 instead of clicking the reaction, which is not only useless and spammy, it also doesn't help at all because people and product managers actually look at exactly this type of source. So please don't comment +1 on GitHub issues.
That's a really good point, right? If you really want your vote to count, don't comment, even though it seems like that would have more of an impact. It actually is diminishing it. So I thought it was apropos that the that the top issue is optional arguments and object variable type definitions. That's something we really want, and it still hasn't been introduced. And I'm surprised that this is going back to 2018. I didn't think it. I thought it was a thing starting like 2020-ish. So yeah.
Do you think that that rule is generally true, or are you just talking about HashiCorp specific way that their product managers do things?
It's generally true.
If project managers that know that you can do this. So
it's pretty common. Also, there are a lot of tools that take the actual metrics from GitHub, like upvotes and thumbs ups, and pull them into like internal trackers and things like that. Comments aren't really used based on my experience.
Well, and I see a lot of community boards where the people are saying use the +1, not comment the +1, because it's easier to track that because you've got that reaction count. Besides a comment that just says +1 doesn't add anything.
I was just curious, does this work across? Can you specify an org?
Yeah, so then the next question is for you, Eric. What is the best
Wow.
way to get attention on a Cloud Posse issue?
Well, I think we should start doing this. So it looks like this is a pretty popular problem with our VPC peering module. Jeremy, you hear that? Yeah, Mr. Nuru.
So what I was just gonna say, there are like product management tools like AHA and Product Board and things that have integrations with GitHub, and they surface like community votes to there for product managers to look at it, and they basically they'll use those upvotes instead of like number of comments to help you like prioritize and sort and figure all those things out.
So I've never heard of AHA. What's AHA?
It's a product management tool.
Like Jira or?
No. So that's project management.
Oh.
So product management, like literally life cycle management, like feature marketing and information gathering, idea gathering from customers, prioritizing features, creating roadmaps, deciding like quarter by quarter what your goals are, and then it integrates to the actual dev teams who do the work, so you can see where they are on progress against your product roadmap, etc. So Product Board is another good one. Those are the two that I've used, and I've had pretty good success with both of them. But this is what product managers are using kind of like day to day to manage their their products that they're working on, etc.
Interesting. And they both pull in issues from open source?
Well, they both will. They have two-way integrations with GitHub, basically. Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be just open source, but it's the idea is that you create basically kind of the epic level things here in Product Board, and then it will sync those like down into either Jira or GitHub or a combination of both, and then you can do like a whole bunch of other things to manage this. But the idea is for you to manage like your top level like goals, and then not to manage the actual implementation details, but the kind of the roadmap and what you're trying to do. And there's all sorts of other things you can do, like competitive analyses and product marketing and launch plans and like all the things that you would have around a traditional like package service product or like true like SaaS product. You can do with those tools.
That sounds interesting.
But my point is that product managers are really, when using those tools, use those counts to help prioritize issues, because it surfaces those counts back up, and it doesn't surface I also have this problem comment. There's no way for them to quantify that. So yeah, that makes sense. The numerical count is important to those tools.
Okay. Well, that was really interesting for me. I think we should focus on that. Next thing was another tool just came across my radar, which was a tool for Terraformers. If you want to list so the AWSLS command, I believe it's been around for a while, but they have added support for specifically like the Terraform resource names. So you can list things out the way, if you're a Terraformer, what makes the most sense. So I like that. All right. Last one was something that I thought was pretty nice. There are all these taco providers, Terraform automation collaboration software services. And one of the things that I think most of them probably could do better is a way of visualizing the plan of what is going to happen, especially, to persons new to Terraform. I think it would help understand what's going on, or to people who aren't working with a particular root module all the time, understanding what the impact is of these changes in a visual manner. So what this visualizer does is it creates a diagram of the architecture of this module, but then highlights in color codes things that are changing, being replaced, or destroyed according to this key here. So I thought that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it also brings to light that there's a fundamental problem, I think, with Terraform at the, with Terraform's output, and how verbose it is, and it doesn't give you a really nice summary. I've done a little side work playing around with Pulumi recently, and I'm stunned at the difference between how nice and concise what's going to happen is with like the Pulumi runs versus like the Terraform plan output or apply output. It's they could do a better job for sure, and give you a verbose version if you want a verbose version, but like give you a summarized version at the top, I think would make it much easier for lots of people.
As I can definitely see that, well, there's this famous expression by Avis or something, we're second, so we try harder. And I think that's what we see with Pulumi. They're trying really hard, and it shows now more and more. I'm wondering if we see it, has anyone seen any signs of pressure against Terraform and signs that they're feeling the pressure and making changes or taking any pages out of Pulumi's playbook? When Starbucks added breakfast, McDonald's added coffee, so to say.
Yeah, I haven't really noticed it myself, but it's hard to gauge like the whole market. You have to sort of talk to a lot of people to understand it. And I think we are at Cloud Posse, we are self-biased or whatever, because we're in the Terraform world right now.
We're in an echo chamber.
So it's hard to know what it's like
get outside
of that world right now. Yeah.
Which was my epiphany and realization when I was at reInvent this past year, was like, Terraform is the end all be all for us in this world. And you go to AWS reInvent and it's like, Terraform what? And it's like, wait, you're not using Terraform to manage your information? No, we use CloudFormation. I never heard of Terraform. That sounds interesting. Can I learn more?
I used CloudFormation at one time, and then I switched to Terraform because I kept running into so many things where I would read it and it would say, I'd see where it would say supported by the CLI, the CDK, the SDK, and I would always say, but not Terraform, or but not CloudFormation.
Yeah, CloudFormation is the no word. You can't say that word.
Well, in our circle.
Two things I'll say about that. So I had a meeting about a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer than that, with the product managers of CloudFormation, and they told me that something like 75% of all of Amazon's enterprise customers rely on CloudFormation to deploy their resources. So clearly, it's a giant base of users. But they also have a mandate now that I think every resource that's supported by the API is like supported by CloudFormation, or like at least anything new that they've released has to have day one support for CloudFormation to get kind of launched out of the checklist of all the things that it needs. So clearly they've heard those early problems and addressed a lot of them there. So by no means am I a CloudFormation fan. I'm just saying like it dwarfs the number of CloudFormation users dwarfs the number of Terraform users by multiples, probably 10x multiples, I would bet, something along those lines.
I can say I'm a CloudFormation fan for certain use cases. Like CloudFormation is really, really good for some things that Terraform is really, really bad at.
Yeah. There are some things.
It's great to set up, but it's horrible if you got to change something. That's the bottom line.
Well, and the other thing that I don't like is the fact, I mean, you delete your stack, it automatically deletes all your resources, and there's no real way to import resources. So if you did something through ClickOps to get it working, you can't get it into your CloudFormation easily. And what you could is very limited in what resources. Whereas with Terraform, I could do all my ClickOps, and then I can just tie it all into Terraform and create the Terraform command, put my clicks through the console.
Yeah, I think that's also a somewhat dated view. They have a support for doing a ton of things where you can import into CloudFormation now, and there's a whole I think Vlad just posted the doc on it, but there's a whole guide that tells you how to do it now. They fixed a lot of what were a lot of the early ugly warts in CloudFormation. They've done a lot to sort of iterate away from, over the last couple of years.
Well, one other big announcement I would add before we get to the question is Graviton 3 is out of preview. C7g instances are now generally available, and it's a big deal. They're super fast and super cheap. Well, they're more expensive than the previous generation by a couple percentage points, but they're way faster. There are a bunch of stats shared on Twitter and in the launch blog and whatever. So yeah, and surprisingly, they're also available for Spot, which was not the thing with C6g. They're basically the new generation of Amazon's ARM processors, and they're cheaper and faster and more awesome, and they really are.
Very cool. So from the pricing perspective, that's where they're most compelling. If you're already on AMD or no. ARM. Yeah.
Yes. But you're certainly pricing, but the bang for your buck is better because they're the same number of cores is significantly better performing with the new generation of processors, even if they're the same gigahertz ratings or whatever. Basically, they outperform their predecessors by significant amounts.
I had a bunch of customers that we updated to use C6g, so the previous generation, and we consistently had cost savings about 25 to 30%. And if you're doing containers and not doing anything particularly intensive, is not that complicated of a change. EKS supports are really, really well.
Makes sense. So Vlad, we put this off for a while, the GitOps developer experience. Are you ready? Do you want to talk about that today a little bit, or anybody else interested in bringing this conversation?
I think Matt wanted to chat about it, and I said that's an interesting topic and added it. I don't know if Matt is here. Is
Matt Gowie?
I'm terrible with names.
Yeah,
Matt Gowie.
Yeah. If he's not here, he's gonna be not useless, but I'd like to have him here.
Yeah, let's we can punt on it a little bit more.
I could be wrong on it, but I know I wasn't the one that wanted to chat about it. But I was like, yes, we should chat about this because it's often overlooked.
So I just had a discussion topic. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but it came up this week on a sales call that I had. We were pitching what we do with Terraform, and one of the managed providers of that, one of the tacos providers that we use, and their comment was, well, what if HashiCorp decides to go the way of what MongoDB and Elastic did in terms of licensing, and what does that do to these providers now that are popping up offering kind of managed CI or CD for Terraform? And curious if anyone has heard anything from HashiCorp saying they will never ever do that, or heard any mitigations or likewise.
I haven't heard anything of that nature, but I guess you never know, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just hedging. What should we do? Because they have their own Terraform Cloud offering, and at some point they're going to get tired with everyone eating their lunch, probably.
And yeah, that's true. I never thought they did launch a platform for you to do your state management and all that, and They don't seem to push it much, but yeah.
I wonder if it would break any other relationships. Oracle Cloud, they don't have, from what I understand, it's been a while since I've used Oracle Cloud, but from what I understand, they use Terraform as their quote unquote cloud formation. So if you want to do anything infrastructure as code purely with Oracle Cloud, you're using Terraform out of the box. Like there's no questions there. And then AWS, I forget the name of the service, but they have it's basically managed, but it's like managed infrastructure as cloud service, and it accepts CloudFormation or Terraform as input. So you can define your modules and everything. And I wish I could remember the name of the service. But yeah, Proton. Yes, it is Proton. Yeah. So you can define your resources in.
Oh, you mean AWS Proton?
Yeah, AWS Proton.
Yeah.
So you can define your resources in CloudFormation or Terraform, if I understand correctly. And then folks can just say, hey, I need this architecture. They click a button and boom, they got it. So I think if HashiCorp change their licensing the way that they allow these other two, and these are just two examples that I could think of, big clouds, Oracle and AWS. I mean, what sort of ripple is that going to cause for people who depend on Terraform for those products through these other providers? You know what I mean?
You know, Michael, I think you were trying to alleviate my fears, but really you just exasperated them because you just said that.
Sorry.
Because you mentioned AWS Proton is doing this. And well, we know what AWS's track record has been and influence has been on open source and changing licenses.
Yeah, although
I think Michael's point also highlight the fact that Terraform is so vital to so many different companies, or call it AWS, IBM, whatever, that if such a thing happens, which I highly doubt it, it's going to get forked immediately. So not that big of a concern, I would argue.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's a good point. No, too big to fail.
Yeah, I would also say that those use cases that you just mentioned would probably be licensed directly, because that isn't really like interfering with like HashiCorp's core business. But the platforms that directly have feature parity with Terraform Cloud and are meant to do CICD platforms, I would see those ones would be the ones that would be much more should be much more scared if that happened. Like Amazon is going to work out a quick licensing agreement with HashiCorp to get Proton working, something, or HashiCorp will basically just tell Amazon they can keep using it. They'll memorialize that because it's not competitive. But the things that are competitive, clearly, if they went down that route, would be the ones that they would target. So
what about the couple middle of the road circumstances or incident? I'm thinking about specifically GitLab CI would let you store your Terraform state in your GitLab instance, and it runs your CI in GitLab. So it's kind of like that. It's almost like Terraform Cloud, right? It's kind of like that middle of the road type
I would put them in the bucket of people who should be worried, but I wouldn't put Oracle or AWS in the in that bucket, because I think those use cases would be worked out immediately, like with a legal agreement where they would license it for nothing, basically, to let them use that, to continue to use that, because it's in both Terraform and AWS's best interest to allow that to continue. But
GitLab, could you manage the influence spend that HashiCorp has on AWS?
Yeah, and I'm sure like HashiCorp is also like only successful because of like AWS's existence, right? As well, like back and forth. So like they host things collaboratively. They work on projects where they release the SDK things like in real time, etc. So I'm saying like those people I wouldn't be worried about. They're going to work out their deals. It's the GitLabs and Spacelifts and whomever of the world that if it went down this road that would be benefited. I'm not benefit. That would be detrimental to their businesses for sure.
So I thought this was pretty interesting. It's a little bit of a non sequitur, but it was just something I remember when we were talking about GitHub Actions earlier. Vlad brought it up and recommended it. It's a service to manage GitHub Action runners outside of, they're like self-hosted, but by a third party. And it works because obviously GitHub Action Runners are free themselves to self-host. And this is now directly competitive with GitHub Actions. Vlad, I see you're holding your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted, so I love this. I didn't know about it. They launched like last year, and I only found out about them by accident a couple days ago. Like, oh my God, this would have been so lovely. Because like, yeah, you can set up your own runners using the modules. There are a bunch of supported thingies, but that still takes a couple of days, some experimentation. You have to maintain them. BuildJet is just instant. Like, you literally do a couple of clicks, put in your card, and you can just use them. And they're so much faster. And I don't know how many of you had like GitHub Action thingies that jobs that were queuing for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like, this is a really nice in-between step from using GitHub's own runners to running your own.
Oh, and they make exceptions for open source. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
obviously they're not gonna be a fit for everybody, because some people are gonna be like, but I don't want to send my code to them. I don't know what they're doing, la di da di da. But for a lot of people, it's awesome.
Yeah, I was actually gonna put that statement out there. Just buyer beware, always with a service like this. And I'm not saying anything against BuildJet. I don't know anything about them, but remember that you're going to share your source code, especially if it's private, your source code and your cloud credentials with that that company. So make sure that whatever they're doing, you trust them and you've done your due diligence on whomever it is that you're sharing that with.
Related to this, I discovered another thing, which is depot. Let me .dev. Depot.dev basically. It's they're trying to make Docker caching work better. I posted the link in the Zoom chat. Well, depot.dev.
Okay.
They're basically working to make GitHub caching work better, and they're speeding up GitHub builds. It's super early. It's, I think, in a private beta or open beta. I don't know. But I'm really, really excited because how long stuff takes to build, it's something that's affecting everybody. And they're working to make it faster. Like, I would have loved to see this from GitHub themselves or from Docker themselves, but they don't seem to. And they're publishing metrics for like how much faster it is. And yeah, that's interesting. I'm really excited. Again, they're building your image. It's a hosted service. It's super early. It's not going to be a thing for a lot of people.
So they're just doing Docker builds as a service?
Yeah.
Wow.
Way better caching, way faster.
Yeah.
They showcase the metrics at the top of the page, and they're like a really big drop. Yeah, we're twice as fast. Ooh. And it's a one-line change.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. It seems, how did they? What's the staying power of a company like this? Is it just get in, get out while you can and make some money? I just don't see how long term like this.
It's let Docker buy us so that we can be part of their service, right? Come up real quick and then someone buys it.
Or GitHub.
Oh yeah, get acquired.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Microsoft.
Innovate, get acquired. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. It's an aqua hire company.
I've got no idea what their plan is, but
yeah. I wish every founder the best. I just sometimes struggle to understand how they can survive in the long run. All right. The next
my hand was up because so a lot of people love to give the example of AWS and Elastic for how they fighting open source la di da da. And I posted a link in the Zoom chat. Let me post it in the Slack thingy too. Of AWS and Elastic, they're now like best friends. Elastic is being Elastic's own Elasticsearch thing is being served in the AWS marketplace. They're giving discount. They just signed a way bigger partnership. Like, that was also thing that has evolved, that has changed, and now Elastic and AWS seems to be friends. And
escalate
there
to
was
de-escalate, huh?
yeah, there was literally an article that came out a couple of days ago that was once frenemies, Elastic and AWS are now besties. So situations
Yeah.
evolve.
Although there was a lawsuit involved, so I'm sure it has something to do with the settlement terms of the lawsuit. So
Yeah, I got to read this for later. Looks interesting. Oh, you already shared it. Cool. Well, then I want to get to your question. I think it was Luis. Is there an example? Sorry, someone.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yes, that was my question.
Okay, cool, yeah. So is there an example of how to merge global and environment specific variables, probably more levels, so you can call your main stack module in a dry way? So if I understand your question right, you want to be able to more globally define some settings and then override them per environment as necessary, so you can drive your configurations. And what you've described is, Atmos in a nutshell. This is our tool for how we manage configurations. And let me show you what our configurations look like at Cloud Posse. So what we have are our stacks here, and we define a baseline configuration for everything. So when we want EKS, here's the baseline configuration for EKS. That's a lot of freaking configuration. I would hate to define that and repeat that in every environment. Others can be a little bit more dry, like this, or not dry. I mean, it's not that it's dry, it's just a little bit more succinct. And then you have like the Datadog agent, somewhere in between, and so forth. Now, you're going to want to define that per environment. And then we break everything down into these various folders for configuration and inherit. For example, you're going to have some things that are global settings that apply to everything that you're doing.
Okay.
And then we break it down into organizational units and accounts therein here. Let me go into, so here you can see a number of accounts that are provisioned. So we have our dev account, our production account, network account, and so forth. If I jump into our staging account, you can see we import the configuration for the VPC, we import the configuration for EKS and SES and all of these things, and then we override it. So in 32 lines of code, we get a very robust environment with all the best the default settings, and then we override what we need to.
Okay, cool. And so how the modules pick it up from there, like?
So that's what's brilliant about how we approach it. So your modules, your Terraform components are vanilla Terraform components. So if I look at our EKS component here, and look at the cluster. So this is a Terraform root module. And it looks just like any other Terraform root module you've ever written or seen. We're still using variables, just like always. What we do with Atmos is we just deep merge all those YAML settings, and then we write a var file and pass that var file to Terraform.
Okay.
So we could do it all natively. And well, so all of this is technically native Terraform. I mean, we have our Cloud Posse provider called utils, which can read the stack configurations. So you can read all that YAML configuration from Terraform if you wanted to, or what we prefer to do is just use the standard Terraform variable interface. That way we have all the validation that we get out of the box with Terraform.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, worth checking out. The Atmos is in the category of other tools like TerraGrunt, and we just took a very similar but different approach, using a YAML instead of HCL. And the idea with Atmos is that it's not beholden to just Terraform. We're using it with Helm file. We want to extend it to work with Packer. We want to use it to extend it to other tools as well. So we have a very dry way of defining configuration in YAML, and then can use that dry configuration to pass it to various tools.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
And even if you don't subscribe to the full-blown Cloud Posse approach, there's good code in those modules for sure. At least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly. It's an opinionated way. It's not for everyone. But it's worth checking it out. If this is a problem you're facing, we've solved it in a big way, and it's how we're able to manage extremely large environments with thousands of root modules deployed across dozens and dozens of accounts, and it works really well.
Cool.
All right. Let's see. Next question on the docket. Nothing here. Oh, wait, here. Managed chaos. Michael Jenkins. Pinning containers in CI configurations with Ratchet. What is Ratchet? I don't know. Seth Vargo,
so this was a tool. I literally just came across it today. But it looks like a way to pin your CI YAML or your config, so that instead of like this first example, GitHub Actions, you're saying Ubuntu latest or Ubuntu 2004, when instead they pin it to the exact image hash. So that way, you get consistent configuration for every run. So if Ubuntu latest changes between, the run you did last week and today, you don't have to worry about any drift there. I don't know if it's overkill for something like Ubuntu latest, but I could see it if it's another image that you're depending on. So I don't know. I just thought
I like it. I would take it from a slightly different perspective. I mean, you're right. It's great from a locking perspective, like you're pinning to precise versions, but I would like to spin it another way. I mean, the biggest risk, if you're relying on open source GitHub Actions and just using regular tags, leases, is that those are not, those are mutable. And you have no way to know if supply chain, attacks were injected there. So while pinning to this version doesn't prevent the supply chain, at least gives you the assurance that at that specific version, if you audit and inspect it and verify it is good, then you know what you're running. Now, that assumes you have that whole other side of things, which is scanning your GitHub Actions or whatnot. And I don't know, have any vendors come out like Snyk with solutions to, inspect that? And how do you inspect for that? I don't know. Other than, grep for Monero inside of you or Monero inside of your GitHub Action.
Well, no, I think it was with like Matt, and sorry to cut you off, Matt, but for that other product that we were talking about, we put a lot of trust into the folks that are running our CI because we're giving them everything, right? We're giving them our credentials, our code, and so you're placing a lot of trust in number one, the provider, but then I guess at the next tier down, any of these third-party actions that you pull in, you're also potentially trusting them. Even if you don't give them your credentials, you're still throwing them a GitHub token, scope to your repo.
And it's very different from like Terraform and Terraform open source. Like if you're using Cloud Posse modules and you're practicing proper CI, even if there's a supply chain attack, you're looking at your plan, right? You're seeing that, oh crap, we are deploying this thing we didn't want to deploy, or we're destroying this thing we didn't want to destroy. But with GitHub Actions, you're not seeing any of that. It's all Terraform applied, dash force or dash trust me is what they should call the flag.
all I was going to say is that it's a complicated problem because you're relying on, in many cases, like, compiled code or whatever, like from another repository. So like the only true way to really do this would be to mirror all those repositories and get like code scanning on those repositories, and then actually build the artifacts from source that are run like and point to your own repositories. I mean, it completely kills the simplicity of GitHub Actions. So
I'm curious.
I checked
this. You did,
I don't see any, because the problem is that the way that it the GitHub Actions work is that they expect them to be published to the marketplace, right? So,
Right. Well, no, it could be any.
I mean,
GitHub repo.
you can go direct to
Or
any
Docker
GitHub
image,
repo
yeah.
or Docker image, but I'm saying a lot of them,
Yeah.
expect that. I'll say when you just
When it
use
runs,
the
it literally does Git checkouts on those repos, right? You can just clone them.
Yeah.
If you wanted to. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that you can't clone them. I'm just saying that, like, to get consistent, like, ahead of time vulnerability scanning in all the code that you're running there is actually a really tough problem to solve. Like, it's not. Yeah, I presume. I hope, maybe I'm wrong, but I hope like GitHub is doing some sort of scanning on repos that are being
They
pulled in.
do.
But,
They have the Dependabot stuff, right?
Well,
which
that's different though. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe they do some of their own. Dependabot is for dependency, like upgrades, but I'm saying they also have their code scanning.
Yeah, the code QL, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they run that or run something when they clone, the action checkout, but maybe not. I'd have to go look at the actual code for that, but it's a tough problem to solve.
I don't think they do I don't think they do a real-time scan per action in the middle of a workflow. I don't think they do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess two problems there. One, in your workflow, like, I mean, a developer, they're not going to wait for a security scan, or not, I shouldn't say they're not going to wait. They're not going to be patient enough to appreciate a security scan when all they're trying to do is get their container image or get their code deployed. They just want to see that workflow turn around. And then from the GitHub side, it's like you got thousands of third-party actions. And so now what do? You go to your marketplace and you start scanning all of these actions that people may or may not be using. Or you can even pull images from Docker Hub, or from some other place into your action. So now do you start scanning those? So it's like the problem kind of expands quite a bit.
Yeah, except that they do have visibility into every action that people are like pointed at, as an example. So I'll share a big company doing the right thing, story. So Eric laughed at me because he called me a noob purposely. Like a week ago, I accidentally committed a Slack token to GitHub, and then I realized right away that I committed it, and I actually deleted the commit and rewrote history and pushed it back up, like all within maybe a minute. And I was like, and it was just in a test organization, so I didn't really care about the security of that. And I was like, oh, I'll revoke that eventually, like when I'm done with this. And like a couple hours later, I got a thing from Slack saying, hey, we noticed that you pushed your token for this repo to a repository in Git. We've automatically revoked that token, and you should go re-enable this if you want to use it. So
that's pretty awesome.
Clearly there are people companies out there that care about like security and all of that kind of thing.
So you didn't have this defined as a secret in your organization anywhere? There's just some back-end communication between Slack and GitHub to say this token has been pushed?
Yeah, so they must use regex, expressions to find it, I'm assuming.
It's
the
a
same
GitHub
thing
official
for AWS
program,
team.
and the docs are linked into the office hours Slack.
But I can give two examples, and the first one somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe if you're on GitHub Enterprise, it will scan for secrets in your code when you push. But correct me if I'm wrong. That may not be the case.
So it'll. Like I'm on cloud, and it definitely scans for secrets which you have defined, and it's like an exact string match.
Oh,
if you push something that was previously defined as a secret, it will pick that up immediately.
Got it.
Yeah.
But I think what he's saying is there was a little bit more advanced level of communication between Slack and GitHub systems to where he didn't even have to define anything.
Yeah, so let me just be clear. I know how it's done. It wasn't magic. There's a partner program that GitHub has to allow like partners to define what their secrets look like. And they can opt into notifications when those secrets are like committed to code, and then they can take action on their side to be able to do that. Oh yeah, Eric brought it up here. So, but the long story short there is my point is that people are taking Slack in this case is taking the initiative to opt into that program and actually take action when their secrets are compromised, out there. So I think it's actually like, there are large enterprises that, even though it's probably a lot of effort to do this for them, like they're doing the right thing so that their platform isn't
and it's worth it for them, because GitHub would be one of the most likely places that a secret would get shared, right?
Of course.
Well, definitely worth their effort to, and that's a draw that I would suspect this thing is pretty good. Do they have a more explicit list of what's in there?
Well, one other example I want to give real quick is Bitbucket. I mean, I don't know how many people are using or still using Bitbucket pipelines, but I set up a project not too long ago, and I don't think I even turned on the pipelines. Like I didn't have a pipeline definition, but it was still running a pipeline. So I looked at it, and by default, it was scanning my code for tokens. So that was just like another sort of like security built-in type thing. That, I mean, I appreciated it.
Cool. Let's see. Any other questions for today? I'm going to look at the conversation here in Zoom. Isaac is asking, speaking of security, is everyone running SaaS tools like Snyk at their companies? I investigated getting Snyk for my company, but couldn't convince the big guys to splurge for it. So, yeah, a lot of our customers that are going for one of the benchmarks for compliance are using Snyk or Bridge Crew, for example, for Terraform code, but that's all I know. Socket.dev. What is socket.dev, Vlad?
They're also a startup. They're doing deep scanning of all your JavaScript dependencies. So they're basically looking at the code for all your dependencies and looking if they're doing something evil. There are some of the companies that are doing something interesting in the area. I remember them because I think they just announced a funding round or something. But yeah, they look pretty interesting.
Did anything stand out? Like, did they have like a novel approach, like AI or something? I'm just joking, but did you recall any like specific secret sauce that made them stand out?
I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I think they're the only one that are doing deep scanning. Like, I don't know what Snyk is doing. I've got no idea.
Okay.
Snyk has an open source component too, so I'm surprised you had to like convince your company. You could have used the open source.
Snyk has an open source?
Yeah, if you go on their products, it's literally right as one of their products. I mean, I'm sure you only get a fraction of what they would offer if you bought it or were paying for it.
It's purely their open source version is purely the CLI, right? But you actually have to like instrument it all yourself and call it and et cetera, where the other, like the paid platform is actually like integrates with CI, shows you stats, shows you trends, like does reporting on all of your, across all of your repos, et cetera, et cetera. So it's definitely more robust.
Helps you manage, the remediations.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
It's like a click it and be done.
Well, or like at least making sure you're meeting your SLAs for fixing critical bugs, maybe, for example.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like if anyone's used Claire open source, or if you're using the container scanning for ECR, it helps you check the box, but it's a lot of work to get it implemented the right way. So you're tracking what your time to resolution is and creating issues for it and so forth. All right, well, we are out of time for today. I just want to thank everyone again for participating in today's session of Office Hours. We learned a lot of cool new tools. Really cool to hear about BuildJet as well. I think that might be something we offer up to customers as an alternative, perhaps, who don't want to self-host. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/cloudposse and subscribe, and you'll get our back catalog of all past Office Hours sessions if you want to catch up. We have our weekly newsletter, newsletter.cloudposse.com, where we syndicate all of the interesting links that we find through our community and through just our industry in general that catch our attention. I love connecting with everyone. Add me on LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/in/Osterman. Again, linkedin.com/in/Osterman to connect with me. And if you ever want to work with Cloud Posse, super easy. Just take our quiz. It'll help us assess if we're a good fit for where you're at today. Go to cloudposse.com/quiz, and you can book a call and get a free consultation with yours truly and see how we can help you out. Talk to you guys next week, same place, same time. Have a great rest of your week.